Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming here. This is not going to be a 5-minute press conference. This is a complex issue involving some very powerful people in the state of New York, and a confirmation once again of the swamp that is Albany right now. And quite frankly, I am here with Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney to start the ball rolling to drain the swamp. We've heard that before, but this time we mean it. It's been an interesting 2 weeks in what we've seen right now. Just to summarize what's happened, Assemblyman Vito Lopez, who was the chairman of the Housing Committee, a very powerful Brooklyn Democrat, was about to become charged with sexual harassment by 2 of his female employees. In order to quiet them down, hush money, Vito went to Sheldon Silver, who arranged for a settlement for these 2 women of $135,000, $103,080 of which came out of a taxpayer-paid funded fund that is Sheldon Silver's slush fund under the title of miscellaneous contractual arrangements. There are $12 million in that for Sheldon Silver's discretion, and that is one of the places where he gets his power base from, because all these miscreants in the assembly who have done wrong go to him. He helps pay out money, and that is his power base. Okay? What we saw in this is that apparently Attorney General Eric Schneiderman was aware of this settlement and agreement and signed off on it, and Thomas DiNapoli, the comptroller, signed off on the check itself. At this point, we have seen that this was done before by Sheldon Silver in a case in 2003 with one of his own staffers, Michael Boxley, who was about to be charged with rape. But an out-of-court settlement of a little over $500,000 was paid through the same fund by Sheldon Silver. Apparently, Michael Boxley had the same problem 2 years before this that Sheldon helped enable to keep quiet. I am astonished at what I am seeing in Albany. The sleaze factor has gone up by about 10,000 points in the last week, with the likes of Shirley Huntley being arrested for misuse of her not-for-profit, of Naomi Rivera putting 2 boy toys on her payroll full-time, when indeed they already had full-time jobs. I'm going to give you a quote from Democratic State Senator Liz Kruger of Manhattan. Said, "I think both in reality and in perception, there is a culture within the highest levels of government in this state, the legislative and the executive, that we are above the rules and the law, and that these kinds of outrageous behavior can be tolerated for extended periods of time because we are individually elected and nothing can be done about it." The idea that in a time like this, with our state on the ropes financially, that our taxpayer dollars are going to help enable sex crimes by the Speaker of the Assembly is unconscionable. He himself said that what he did, in a quote, was both legal and ethical. Really? Ethical where? By whose standards is this ethical? Only by Sheldon Silver and the legislature can something like this be remotely called ethical. Forget about legal. What laws are there that are excluding legislators from doing the likes of this? And I'll ask you a question, I'll posit you a question in terms of what we're talking about right now, and that is, what is the difference between Joe Paterno, who spent years hiding a sex crime at Penn State University, and Sheldon Silver, who has been enabling the likes of this that we now have seen and he's admitted to? What is the difference between the two of them? The difference between the two of them is that Sheldon Silver is using taxpayer money to enable this, to use our taxpayer money, our hard-earned taxpayer money, out of a taxpayer-funded slush fund, to use it as hush money for people the likes of Avito Lopez and other people involved in who knows what. So, I will give you another quote from a woman who is not of our district, and her name is? Julie Ann.
From Schenectady?
From Schenectady, New York. This is an independent woman. I do not understand politics at all. I do not understand how this is not against the law. Isn't any of this illegal? Or is that only for people who are not lawmakers? Is there a separate set of laws for the Assembly and Senators? I do not understand the first thing about politics, but all this seems illegal, and I am surprised that all involved, including Sheldon Silver, are not mandated to resign. I work hard for my tax dollars, and this is very upsetting. Not to mention goes against Governor Cuomo's stand on, quote, ethics, unquote, within the political system in New York State. My son and I look up to our Assembly, Senate members as they represent our needs. How can we put trust in anyone if this type of criminal behavior is allowed? How can Sheldon Silver cover up something like this? This is wrong, unethical. I am a registered independent and not in any party, and I work very hard for my tax dollars, trying to climb out of poverty, which is impossible right now. And our tax money is used for this when I have to make a loaf of bread last more than I should. This is an injustice to all New Yorkers. So here are my set of recommendations for this to make this not happen again. And now I'll turn this over to my esteemed colleague. Number one, term limits. 8 years is enough. And then have a 2-year term for all leadership positions. In other words, after the election, the majority party will caucus and elect a Speaker of the Assembly or a majority leader for the Senate, and it will be a 2-year term, and that will be it. Not any re-election possibility, because the Constitution requires the Assembly Speaker to do nothing more than to push forward the legislation that they deem necessary and appropriate for the state. Nothing more. It says nothing about slush funds. It says nothing about hush money. It says nothing about the power that has been congealing around Assemblyman Sheldon Silver for the last 18 years that he has been in power. No slush funds, period. I'm calling on an independent investigation of all legislative slush funds and exactly what happened now. The mechanism that allowed Sheldon Silver to be able to have a slush fund, that he is discretionary, that he can spend and do whatever he wants with. We want an independent investigation, and we want to know how many times has this happened before? What other misuse of taxpayer funds was this fund used for? We want to know the involvement of Schneiderman and DiNapoli. We want to know how many other slush funds there are, and where in the budget are these located, and what are the official purposes of these slush funds. I'm calling on a 30-day legislative calendar, because the more time we spend up here, the more stuff like this you see. And as a businessman, I can tell you and promise you, we do not need more than 30 days up in Albany a year. We don't want to have a professional class of full-time politician legislators with their elitist, above-the-law mentality. And therefore, we want no pay raises for these people, including myself, because, Lord have mercy, let's start doing the right thing before we give ourselves, pat ourselves in the back for doing nothing more than having a budget on time, for Lord's sake. Now, Governor Cuomo, this is your New York, your new New York, the new $10 million ad campaign. New York is open for business. What? The corruption business with slush fund payoffs? A hostile working environment for women led by a morally bankrupt Sheldon Silver who acts as an enabler? This is your opportunity to show the state that you are a real reformer, cleaning out the sleaze and institutionalized corruption led by Speaker Silver. And Sheldon Silver, you have confirmed all suspicion of you as the boss Tweed of Albany's clubby Tammany Hall. You have lost all credibility as an ethical leader with integrity, and instead are now an accomplice, an enabler. You demanded Vito Lopez's resignation from the Assembly, even though he's not been convicted of any crime yet. I am calling on you to do the decent thing and do the same. Why should Lopez go and not you? At very least, we are demanding that you resign from your leadership post of Speaker of the Assembly until an independent investigator comes out with their findings. To do any less would be another example of your hypocrisy and desperation to cling to your corrupt power. We want to end the hostile work environment for women. We have seen here through Sheldon Silver and his actions that yes, there's a war on women going on, all right, but it's with the Democratic leadership, and we're calling for an end to it. I will turn this over now to my colleague, Claudia Tenney.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the concerns. Last week I also called for the immediate resignation of Sheldon Silver, the current Assembly Speaker, from his speakership. This is an extremely important issue, and I'd like to really focus on not so much Vito Lopez, which obviously sexual harassment is a very serious, heinous crime, which we know is a big problem in the state of New York, and as we're finding out more and more in the Assembly. But as a woman, I am a member of the Assembly. Sheldon Silver is our leader. He's the leader of the Assembly, even though I'm in the opposition party. And he should be setting the standard for ethics. And the standard for ethics is to treat all of us with dignity and to provide an ethical leadership. This slush fund issue, this $12 million contractual obligation, nebulous type of fund, I think we need to find out more about who exactly has been paid off in this issue and who is receiving money and who has control over it. Is this solely under the control of Sheldon Silver? Is this $12 million put in a fund so a voucher can be submitted to the state controller and the state controller just writes a check? I mean, where is the oversight here? Where are we making sure that the taxpayers' trust is protected? And as a member of the Assembly, I take this seriously, my oath of office, my fiduciary obligation to the people I represent, but also to the state of New York. And I, as a small business owner, I'm also an attorney. This is unacceptable, and when I hope the governor joins in and asks for the resignation of Mr. Silver as well, so we can set a new standard in the Assembly and make New York open for business. As a business owner, my family has been from New York State most of my life. My grandfather was from here. We started our business in 1946, and we've been here ever since. We don't want to leave New York. We want to continue to grow and be part of this great, what was once the Empire State, and rebuild this state back to what it was. We have to take seriously in the private sector how we treat women in the workplace, and all people in the workplace, whether you're a minority or anyone. We care very deeply for our employees, and we try to take care of them, and we want to make New York a great place to be. We don't want people leaving the state. And in terms of the corruption in Albany, I echo a lot of Steve's sentiments. I know he's on some joint bills with me. One of the bills is to cut our Assembly legislative and Senate pay in half, and that would reduce, I don't know about the 30 days, it probably could be done, but This particular bill would take the 30 days, or would take the assembly pay, cut it in half, and cut our legislative session in half like it used to be. The New York State Assembly used to be completed, we had our budget done April 1st, and everybody went home for the year. It's done that way in Maryland, and it's done that way throughout the rest of the country in many states. One of the reasons is we come in, Steve knows, I know he comes from the private sector, as do I, and I know one of our first days, we came in and everybody came in from all parts of the state at the taxpayer's expense with mileage and per diems. We got there, we voted on one bill. One bill in an entire afternoon. We know this can be done in less time. Another bill that I also have, which which actually aims at the term limits, we like to call it 8 is enough. 8 years is enough, but I think something that's even more significant is to actually take the political class, who is anyone that's either an appointed or elected official, and take them out of what's called the defined benefit pension plan in New York State, and take away the gaming, the double dipping, and the allure of this pension, because you could do term limits, but then this person's going to jump to the Senate, they're going to jump to an appointed position with maybe NIRA or some other position with the governor or some executive agency, get their high 3s and retire. And I do think that this is a disservice to, say, the rank and file public employee who might work 35 or 40 years at $30,000 a year and don't have the opportunity to, say, hopscotch around and to game the system as a politician and aren't in the political class. And I just think of all of our hardworking people, say, that are working very hard with mental health issues or dealing with people with special needs. These people aren't going to just be able to jump from around to get to benefit from this system. And I think that puts a huge burden on our system and a huge burden on our pension system, which makes it very costly to do business. And that's what many of these politicians are in this for. They're not in this for any other reason other than power and to game the system. And I think that when you look at this situation with the sexual harassment that's going on in the Assembly and the secret payoff, and again, like Steve, he talks about Joe Paterno. Let me give another example, the Catholic Church. We have a lot of people are horrified at what happened with the abuse of young children in the Catholic Church by members of the clergy. But what did the Catholic Church do? They kept it under wraps. They kept it hidden. And so, although the acts were horrific, what is even more horrific is the cover-up. The cover-up of this and the secrecy and moving priests around to different areas so they can continue to be predators against some of our most vulnerable people, our children. And this is the same issue. We have young girls or young women working as interns in the Assembly or coming in as staff people, and they're not in a position like we are as colleagues. They can't, they're young, they're excited, they're coming out of college or high school, and they want to work in the government. They're excited about politics. We want people to get involved in politics. We want good people in politics. We don't want them to be subjected to people who are going to be committing these types of acts against our young people and our rising stars. So, with that, I really think it's time for Shelley to just, take down his hat and put the gavel down and resign. This is the greatest example he could set as the leader of the Assembly at this point. Thank you.
Claudia, are there any questions? We'll take any questions right now. I'd be happy to answer either of us. Yes, sir.
We had something like that happen with the President of the United States many years ago, and he didn't resign. What makes you think that Sheldon Silver will do any different?
Just like anything else. He's not going to go unless there's tremendous pressure on him to go. There's no other way. Here we are, starting the drumbeat. The drumbeat starts now. We don't want an investigation through the J-COPE. We don't want an investigation through, I'm glad they're doing that, and I'll be happy that Snyder in Staten Island is starting an investigation. But we want the governor to launch an independent investigation, because that was the way we ultimately got rid of a president, and I don't think that there's any reason that we can assume otherwise for the Speaker of the Assembly. No man or woman in this country is above the law or should be above the law, and that's what an independent investigator with their findings will prove to all of our satisfaction, which is what the state of New York needs right now, is we the people need some reassurance that we have a government that has some modicum of ethics, honesty, and integrity. The last 2 weeks, we have not seen any of that.
Let me address that question, because I don't know if we use taxpayer slush fund to pay off any of the women that Bill Clinton was supposedly having relationships with. And as far as I know, those were consensual relationships, not a workplace. I mean, the one was a workplace environment, obviously, that we know of for sure. Others were people that were on the campaign trail. So whether or not we use taxpayer money against the taxpayers' consent to pay them off, I don't know. That's a question I'd like to raise. It's a very good analogy, though.
Yes, ma'am.
You're both Republicans. Is this a partisan
Liz
issue?
Kruger's a Democrat. I don't know if she's asked for his resignation, but she's a Democrat in the Senate.
And the response to that is, what does this have to do with politics? You can be a Democrat or Republican. Assemblyman Tenney and myself would be here regardless.
And so where's the other leadership? Where's Brian Kolb?
That's a good question.
It's a very good question, but I am sure that our leadership will come up with a response that will be both swift and appropriate.
Okay.
Yes.
Wink, wink.
First of all, thank you for using your office properly. It's what you were elected to do, and I certainly appreciate that as a New Yorker. Is there any indication that Governor Cuomo will actually put action behind the words that he's talked about, based on what you know now?
I don't know. I think people are testing the waters. I will say that a lot of this has gone on during this Labor Day weekend leading up to it, so many people were not around. So maybe we'll see as this develops. I think there's a lot more to come out. As the investigation moves forward, I think you're going to find out. My initial impression is, with or without an investigation, it's on its face unethical. So that's why we need to pursue this now. Step down now, and then I think you save face. And you also show that you're actually really a leader.
And I will say that we will continue to ramp up the pressure for an independent prosecutor, because we, the people of the state of New York, need to have a real assurance that going forward, we're going to have a government that is not above the law. Anybody else? Well, I want to thank you all very much for coming on this very, very important issue.
And thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
That's true.
Sorry, I was late. Can you help me with one?